Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we're going to talk about optimizing Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP with well-architected insights. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A thread. Here we've got chat responders who will answer your questions, and we will start now by introductions. My name is Danny. I'll be one of the hosts today. Before working at NetApp, I worked in other companies. So I've got an all in all about 12 years of experience with AWS, building applications and working in the cloud. And today I am very happy to have a co-host, somebody who's also quite an expert when it comes to storage, cloud, and everything in between, Pradeep Rahul. Pradeep, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Danny. Hello, everyone. My name is Pradeep Rahul, and I'm the technical lead for FSx for ONTAP here at NetApp. I've been with NetApp for about 2.5 years, but I've used NetApp quite a lot in my past technology years. Prior to joining NetApp, I've worked for companies like Fujitsu, Atos, CGI, Dell on many different workloads, and architected complex solutions, both on-premises and in cloud. So being a solution architect for many years, I understand the challenges and the importance of a well-architected solution, because you want to make sure any solution, any application you architect is secure, it's highly available, it's performant, and it's architected with efficiency, cost, and sustainability in mind. So I'm glad to be talking about the AWS Well-Architected Framework today. I will go through all those in the next slides. For now, Danny, over to you.
Thank you very much. So the whole idea for the well-architected framework is that organizations have been migrating their workloads to the cloud. Why do they do that? They want to increase speed. We all want to increase our speed, accelerate innovation, improve security, and of course, reduce costs. Although working into the cloud will eventually get you that, but you need to work in a certain way. And also in AWS, they understood that and brought the well-architected framework. But before we talk about that, Rahul and I introduced ourselves so you can get to know us, but we would like to get to know you a little bit. So we'll start with a poll to gauge your understanding on interest in the well-architected dashboard. Liat, can you put the poll up? Thank you very much. Okay, so I see that you guys are answering the questions. We've got interesting results here, and I think we'll have something final soon. Okay, so we've got the results, and I see that most of you are somewhat familiar with the well-architected framework. Some are very familiar, some heard about it, and some never used it. And when it comes to what is interesting about why are people tuning in, so again, we have more than one option available, which is good, because most people are interested in more than one pillar. Operational excellence, security is number one. We're all concerned about security. There are lots of threats out there. And of course, there's regulations that aren't going anywhere too. Reliability, always an issue. Performance efficiency, cost optimization is the second concern, because on the one hand, we want to service our customer, but on the other hand, we don't want to get the CFO too angry. We all work in a budget. And of course, last but not least, performance efficiency, always a major concern. And with that, to understand how Amazon FSx for ONTAP fits in with the well-architected framework, Pradeep, please lead us through.
Sure. Thank you, Danny. The question is, why do we need a well-architected framework, right? What's the significance, and what are the risks of not following the well-architected framework? Well, you can think of the AWS Well-Architected Framework as a set of best practices and guidelines. So as you know, application architects, solution architects. You have those best practices coming from Amazon and the guidelines which you can follow. Obviously, you can introduce your own, set of best practices and guidelines based on your organizational requirements and regulations. It's basically designed to help cloud architects build secure, high-performing, resilient, and efficient infrastructure for their application, right? As most of you will probably know from the poll, I can see there's good familiarity around it. The framework has 6 pillars, and as you can see here, each of these pillars, whether it's operational excellence, cost optimization, they have their own design principles and architectural best practices, so you can follow those when you are designing or running workloads in cloud. Now, if you're designing an application from scratch, you can follow the design principles and the best practices and build a well-architected application, right? However, when you are building an application, of course, you will need many components or services. So you could be following the best practices yourself. But what if the components you are using are not so well architected, right? So the components have to be well architected. So let me give you a real life examples. Now, everybody is obviously talking about sustainability and efficiency and all, right? Say in a real world, I want to build an energy efficient house and I could be doing everything right. But what if my doors, the windows are not energy efficient, or the bricks and insulation I'm using are not energy efficient, right? So it's important that the components are also energy efficient, and I should also have means and tools to assess all those components and make sure they tie in with my energy efficiency goals. So we are following the best practices in terms of architecting. At the same time, we need to make sure that tools are also well architected. And then we have means to assess how well architected the tools are or how well architected the solution is. So today we'll look into one of those components, which is FSx for ONTAP, and we'll look into the tool which can help you assess how well architected your solution is, and that tool we'll look into is Workload Factory. We'll dive into 3 pillars today, not all 6. At some point, we'd look to do all 6, obviously. On all those 3 pillars, we'll look into the design principles which are laid out by AWS for those particular pillars and how FSx for ONTAP meets those design principles. So let's go to the first pillar, which is operational excellence, and let's look at the design principle, what it says. So some of the design principles of operational excellence are perform operations as code, use managed services, or make frequent, small, and reversible changes, anticipate failures, or implement observability for actionable insights. These are the design principles laid out by AWS. How can you meet that with your tools, or how can you meet that with FSx for ONTAP? Well, FSx for ONTAP is a fully managed service, so you don't have to worry about keeping the platform up to date. It's always up to date. Any hardware failure, software failure is taken care by AWS, so it's fully managed. You can be rest assured. And then with FSx for ONTAP, you can use tools like Terraform and CloudFormation for various tasks. So if you have CI/CD pipeline, you can perform various operations as code. So that part is taken care of. You can scale capacity and performance as required. You can scale in smaller increments, and you can reduce capacity and performance as required as well. So I can confidently say that FSx for ONTAP is well architected from an operational excellence point of view, because it takes most of the boxes on the design principles of operational excellence. Let's look into the reliability pillar. Again, the design principles are automatically recover from failure, test recovery procedures, scale horizontally, stop guessing capacity, and manage change in automation. So these are the design principles of the reliability pillar. How can we meet that with FSx for ONTAP? Well, FSx for ONTAP always have 2 independent copies of your data. So in case one particular copy of data is not available, whether that is due to hardware failure, networking failure, or software failure, it automatically fails over to the second copy. So you always have a second copy of data. So that, meets with the design principle of automatically recovering from failure. It also have the ability to do multi-AG deployment, which means your data can be spread across two different AGs and they're synchronously replicated. So it protects you against a AG failure. You can scale both horizontally or vertically. So for example, you can some of your application might need a lot of performance, so you can just scale performance, whereas some of your applications might need a lot of storage, but not a lot of performance. You can do that as well. And performance and throughput can be scaled up and down as required with capacity, with dynamic capacity pool as well. So you just, pay what you use, and the capacity pool grows and shrinks as you upload data or use data on that particular pool. You also have the ability to seamlessly move and protect data across regions or across different cloud providers like Azure, GCP, etc. As long as you have ONTAP running on your infrastructure, you can move data back and forth. So as you can see, it meets kind of most of the design principles of the reliability pillar. So it gives you a really well-architected tool to go with your well-architected solution. Let's go to the cost optimization pillar. So with cost optimization, as you know, cost and sustainability are in everybody's mind. We could see in the poll that, quite a few of you are kind of very interested in cost and, are aware of, cost implications when you are architecting solution, especially when it comes to cloud. Cost is a important factor because now suddenly you can imagine most of your developers, application owners have access to the AWS account. So you can go and spin up services, and then people have tendency to spin services and sometimes leave it running. So it can, keep on adding cost to your account. So there are important design principles on the cost optimization pillar. What are they? So there, some of them are implement cloud financial management, adopt a consumption model, not a CapEx model, measure overall efficiency, or analyze and contribute expenditure. So with FSx for ONTAP being a fully managed service, it's purely on a consumption model. So you consume it from the console, which means no licensing cost or no hidden charges are there. And you only pay for what you use. If your demand grows and you use more, you pay more. And if your demand, slows down and you are using less, you're paying less. So it adheres to that particular design principle. It also has the ability to thin provision along with amazing efficiency savings with deduplication, compression, and compaction. So with FSx for ONTAP, sometimes on file workload, you can see in typically there are 60 to 70% of efficiency savings. So imagine a customer bringing 100 terabyte of data and the efficiency savings have reduced physical footprint of 100 terabyte of data to maybe, let's say, 35 terabyte of data. You're only paying for 35 terabytes, so 35%, not 100% of that data. So that's quite cost efficient. At the same time, it is also quite very sustainable because if you are taking less space, taking less physical space, that means you are using less resources and which is leading to less energy consumption. So it is more sustainable as well. There is intelligent tiering as well. So tiering enables the right balance between storing the right data in the right place. So you can optimize cost and performance accordingly. Stats, if you look into stats in terms of the amount of data we generate as opposed to the data we access, roughly 68% of the data we generate is never used, right? So we generate loads of data and we don't necessarily use all that data. So it's important that we keep all data if we need to, but at the same time, whatever data we are not using frequently, we keep them in the cheaper storage tier to leverage cheaper cost. At the same time, the data which we frequently use, we get the best performance out of it, right? So there is intelligent tiering gives you that right balance. There is also dynamic scaling capability that allows you to provision based on demand, which further optimizes cost. So you're not paying for over provision capacity and performance at the same time. When you need additional capacity and performance, you can get that on the fly. So with that, we covered FSx for ONTAP as a component that can be used for well-architected solution. With that, I'll pass over to Danny and to go through the workload factory as a tool to see how you can assess your environment, your infrastructure, and see whether they're well architected or not. Danny, over to you.
Thank you very much, Pradeep. So Pradeep gave us a comprehensive view of the well-architected framework and how Amazon FSx for ONTAP can be a major pillar, a major foundation for our well-architected application. But the question, well, that begs the question, how do we know that we are using our Amazon FSx in according to best practices to our specific application? So for that, we at NetApp introduced Workload Factory, which is an automation and optimization service that the idea is to help companies implement a well-architected practices when planning, provisioning, and operating their workloads, where Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP is the storage layer, where they store the data for the application. The challenge is that when we break down the planning, provisioning, and operation of applications, essentially we need to plan, to assess, and calculate, basically understand what are our needs for the applications, what are the requirements. We need to provision the cloud resources, and then we need to operate the day-to-day, which means automating, monitoring, optimizing, etc. We need to stay up to date with well-architected practices, deploy and manage multiple tools, create automation scripts to avoid doing repetitive tasks manually. And here, this is where BlueXP Workload Factory enters to help us do all these three on top of our applications sitting on top of Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP. Essentially, we've got an array of tools there, TCO calculators and migration advisors to help us plan, deployment wizards and infrastructure as code scripts to help us provision. And to operate, we have dashboards like the well-architected dashboard and drift remediation that we're going to talk about today. Essentially, Workload Factory will help us get things right the first time, reduce error-prone manual steps by hopefully 90%, lower workload costs, and the idea is to plan in hours instead of days, clearing our schedule for more important things. And with that, let's take a look at the well-architected dashboard. And I almost forgot the most important thing about BlueXP Workload Factory. The great thing about it, it's absolutely free. And now we can talk about the well-architected dashboard, which is one part of Workload Factory that we're going to talk about today. Like the well-architected framework, we have a reliability pillar, an operational excellence pillar, and cost optimization. This is what we have so far. The well-architected dashboard has been released quite recently, so it's still in the works. In future releases, we will add a security pillar and a performance pillar, and maybe further down the line, a sustainability pillar. So without further ado, we're going to jump straight into the demo, and we're going to start with the reliability section. So with that, I'm going to quickly jump to the demo environment. And let's get it ready. Okay, and let's share the demo environment again. Liat, can you see my screen now? Great, thank you very much. Let's go. So we're in the Workload Factory. We're in the Workload Factory environment. The first thing we're going to do, we've got different workloads. We've got a section for databases. If you're running database on Workload Factory, we've got now that EVS has finally been released, we also support planning and creation of EVS environments if you're into that. and others, but today we'll stick to storage. So we'll go to storage. And the first thing you see, you already see a comprehensive view of your FSx for ONTAP environments. You get a well-architected score, an overall well-architected score, and a well-architected score broken by categories. Another thing I like about Workload Factory, if we take a look at the AWS console, you're somewhat limited to see the file systems you have in a specific region and in a specific account. With Workload Factory, you can take a look at all the regions in the same dashboard, and you can also connect more than one account. So usually, as we all know, we might have separate accounts for our development team, for our pre-prod, for our production, for testing, etc. So different accounts for different organizations can all be viewed from a single place. Now what I'm going to do, I got into my FSx for ONTAP inventory. I'm going to choose one. I already can see the number of issues. And if I double click that, I can get into my my well-architected dashboard. So here I also have a well-architected score for this specific file system. And I also have a score by category. I can go and filter the category. We talked about that we're going to start with reliability. So I'm going to start by filtering reliability and take a look at the issues currently brought forward. So we've got 3 issues that are brought to our attention. We've got scheduling FSx for ONTAP backups, scheduled local snapshots, and remote data replication. Let's explain each one. So essentially, scheduling FSx for ONTAP backups is using the AWS backup that comes with FSx from the AWS console. It's an AWS service. The idea is that you take the local backups created on the FSx, you create backups of the volumes and save them in a remote place in your AWS account. And essentially, if the file system fails, you can use these backups to restore the file system or specific volumes. Another issue here is scheduled local snapshots, that you can take local backups. The NetApp snapshots are point-in-time backups that are very thin. As long as you haven't changed the volumes, the snapshots don't take any space. They are kept locally. So on the one hand, if the file system fails, you can't restore from these local snapshots. But if you have local failures, such as a volume failure or an accidental file deletion, those snapshots can definitely save you, in a minimal budget. You can return quickly, you can recover quickly, can restore whatever you need to restore in a timely manner and without taking too much space for the local backups. And the last issue here is remote data replication. If you want to keep the idea is to keep a DR site in a different region and with built-in replication to replicate the data to the DR site should the region be unavailable and you'll need to fail over to a different region. So let's take a look at the issue. We've got, we can click View Recommendation to see a summary of the issue. And then we can click View and Fix. Essentially, we get an action summary, what's going to happen. We get configurable parameters like the number of days that we want to retain the backups. We've got a backup window, obviously ideal to do this, although it's not too intrusive. We can set it to a time of business hour, in this example to 11 p.m. UTC. We get to see what happens and other important notes, and we can click continue to start a backup plan for our volumes. And with that, we can refresh the well-architected dashboard. We'll scroll up and refresh it and see the score changing. Now we can take a look at our next pillar, which is operational excellence. So we'll go to our filter and choose the operational excellence and remove reliability, click accept. And now we see the issues related to operational excellence. Let's see what they are. So we've got tiering cold data to a more economical storage tier. We've got automatic capacity management and storage efficiencies. So if we, as you can see, there's a bit of an overlap between cost optimization and operational excellence. So we'll talk about these issues when we get to the operational excellence stage. But now let's take a look at the one which is strictly operational excellence, and that's automatic capacity management. What is automatic capacity management? The way that FSx for ONTAP is built, we've got our SSD storage, which essentially the volumes provision storage from it, and it might get full. If you don't use automatic capacity management, you need to remember to increase your SSD storage pool, or you might get stuck. You might run out of space, which could entail downtime. Automatic capacity management, let's click on the recommendation and then view and fix, give us the explanation. Automatic capacity management will increase our SSD storage pool when we reach a certain threshold. In this case, when we reach an 80% capacity threshold, our SSD is going to increase with about 10%. We're going to get 10% more capacity to our SSD storage automatically. Of course, these parameters, as you can see, can be configured. As before, we get an action summary and a detailed explanation as to what will happen when we press continue. And essentially, the idea is, if we refine it down, we don't need to worry about growing our data. We work, and then automatically our SSD storage pool grows only when we need it to grow by a predetermined increment. We can work and not worry about setting alerts that will remind us to increase the SSD storage. And this is currently a unique feature for Workload Factory, and I think something that could be very helpful with automating a task which is on its face on face value is very simple. On the other hand, can get us in a bind if we don't pay attention to it. So let's click continue, and once again, we'll refresh the well-architected dashboard, and we see that our score has increased and operational excellence has increased. Now, cost optimization. So we'll go down, we'll filter our configurations to cost optimization, and we can discuss what we see here. Here we have two issues. One is tiering data to a cold tier. The data tiering, if you know, some of you might know it from ONTAP as Fabric Pool. The idea is that ONTAP automatically tiers cold data to a more economical tier. Needless to say, it could save you a bundle in the long run, especially if you need to archive lots of data, if you need to retain lots of data that is not necessarily read on the day-to-day. Instead of using expensive SSD for it, you can tier it to the capacity pool, which is, although less performant, but much more economical when it comes to cost. And we've all had that moment when we got the DBR in the size of a phone book, and we very much want to avoid that. But now I want to take a look at storage efficiencies, which Pradeep mentioned earlier. It is essentially the storage efficiencies that come from ONTAP, which is under the bonnet of FSx for ONTAP. And the idea is that we've got compression, compaction, deduplication, the works. But what happens if we forget to put it across our volumes? So let's see here. We can take a look at the recommendation, and we'll click View and Fix. Now we get all the volumes that don't have storage efficiencies. Now we can go one at a time and try to take a look at them, or we can just mark them and do a bulk fix. Now we get the pop-up that we saw before with the action summary, what will happen, and we can click continue and apply storage efficiency throughout our volumes. And once again, we can hit refresh and see that our well-architected score has increased to 57%. And that concludes our demo. I'll head back to our deck. Do you see the deck? Yeah. Do you see the deck? Great. Thank you very much. How about now? Great. Thank you very much. Okay, let's run quickly. So to summarize, AWS came up with a AWS well-architected practices to ensure optimal workload design and operation. Once again, giving us the idea how to build our applications with all their components, when to be mindful of cost optimization, reliability, operational excellence, performance efficiency, reliability, etc. FSx for ONTAP as a storage layer and as an AWS storage service come with that, where you can configure it to fit your well-architected application and make sure that you keep all these pillars in mind. And BlueXP Workload Factory gives you the tool to make sure that you are indeed well-architected, using the best practices, and that you are making the most of Amazon FSx for ONTAP for your application. As always, you are going to get this deck and the recording of the webinar, so don't worry about it. If you want to take a look at FSx for ONTAP, we've got the link here. You can use the QR code as well. And furthermore, I think it is a good time to stop and see if there are any questions that have been left unanswered. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at the questions. Let's see. Did we have any questions? I think all the questions have been answered, which is great. Great. So I think this is a good opportunity to first of all thank Pradeep for co-hosting and explaining the well-architected framework so eloquently. I'd also like to thank Liat and Ashrit, our producers, who helped keep this broadcast, helped me minimize my my mistakes and kept me as straight as possible. So thank you for that. And last but not least, I'd like to thank you for listening, for asking interesting questions, for answering our poll, and for making this webinar truly interactive. Closing words from you, Pradeep?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you all for joining. Like I said, we are always evolving. We are always trying to do better. So with the well-architected framework and workload factory, all we are trying to give you is the best tools available out there, so you can do all the groundwork. And then once that's done, you can go and analyze and see where you are. And if there's any room for improvement, you can always go and do that.
Thank you very much, and thank you all, and we really hope to see you again in future webinars. Have a great rest of the day.